chemistry of matter test. Number 4, take 1052. Okay, what is the symbol for copper was question number 1. You look for copper on this little periodic table. It's right here, and you write the symbol, uppercase C, lowercase u. I think everybody got that one right. That was good. List one characteristic of property that all the elements in group 0, which are called the noble gases, have in common. Now, a lot of you got a little confused on this. Some people wrote all of the properties of a nonmetal, which was good, except these are gases. So I actually allowed that answer to be okay, brittle, dull, and answers like that, poor conductors, because if you actually took away enough heat and put this to a solid, those things would apply. But the real answer that we were looking for was this group, which is really called group 18. They put group 0 because they didn't want you to know it was group 18. Everything that they have in common chemically is that they do not react. When it asks you for a property, it doesn't want you to identify its existence. A property is an observation, not an inference. So if you say it was a metal, that is an inference. If you said that was a gas, you can't say that. It's already there. It's a gas. You have to give me a property of it. So a property would be a characteristic that it has. So its behavior. It doesn't react. So if you put two together, you're watching them, they don't react. That's your observation. They are also, you can call them, they are inert, and you can say they're chemically inactive. Two characteristics or properties that all elements to the left of the zigzag. Well, here's the zigzag. Elements to the left, and that includes everything else on the periodic table that's not here. Some people wrote solids. That would be correct, except there is one element that's not a solid on the periodic table. That one element is mercury, so that would make that answer totally wrong because they're not all solids. So what is a property of a metal? Properties of a metal include, they're malleable. Properties of a metal include ductile. You can bend them, you can stretch them. They are good conductors of heat and electricity. And finally, they have the ability to reflect light, so they have luster. So these are properties because properties are something that you can observe. You can't say they're metals, that's an inference. You can't observe that it's a metal. You can observe that it's malleable, has luster, it's a good conductor, and it's ductile. So when they ask you for a characteristic, this is something you have the ability to observe. It all goes back to the first skill that we learned in September, observation inference. Number 4 was careless on lots of people's part. Which element has an atomic mass of 35? Well, you looked for the number 35 and you grabbed it right here. Well, look at this. This also has a number of 35. This told you which was the atomic mass and which was the atomic number. So that's why I say this is careless. The number on the top is the atomic number, but the number on the bottom is the atomic mass. So which element of these two has an atomic mass of 35? Excellent. Chlorine. That's the only one it can be because bromine, which other people wrote, that's its atomic number. So you have to be careful. If you put Cl, I accepted that as well. Number 5, I really didn't like this question, so I was a little bit lenient on the answers that people gave me because why do some elements have 2 letters in their atomic symbol? Some people wrote that the elements come from Latin words and they are like aurum is gold and plumbium is lead, so that's why they get PB and AU. That's true, but that's not why they have 2 letters. Hydrogen is H. Helium also starts with H. If we name them both H, we would get confused. So in order to differentiate them, you add a second letter. So, stupid question. Does that have anything to do with science? No, I feel sad about this question. So 2 letters are necessary so we don't get confused of their identity. Because some elements share the same first letter. Some elements start with the same letter. So therefore, one letter is not enough. You need two. Start with the same letter. Example, IE means example. Hydrogen versus helium. You need two letters to tell them apart. Easy? Okay. Second part of the test, or the first part of the test, rather, is all multiple choice. So, number one, the tiny particles that make up all matter. Most people got this correct. All matter is made up of something called atoms. Believe it or not, somebody picked cells for this, and I wanted to cry. Not in this class, but in one of the other classes. So that means that they're not paying attention. So that means that I have to pay closer attention to who doesn't know what's going on. Which element is considered a metal? Well, you know it has to be to the left of the zigzag, and this is the only one that could be it. I think most of us got that right. This one made me sad because I beat noble gases to the ground. Which element is a noble gas? You had to figure out where it was located on the periodic table. If you looked at all of them, we know these two aren't even gases, so get rid of them. Oxygen versus helium. Oxygen is not a noble gas because it's in group 16, so it will not fit the characteristics. It's not all the way over to the left. But helium is in group 18, so therefore helium is a noble gas. If you got this incorrect, you're writing helium is a noble gas because it's in group 18. When you're justifying your answers, you have to write why it's correct. All right. Which of these substances has the highest number of atoms? When we did Build a Molecule Lab, you had to physically take the atoms and put them together. So you should know how many atoms each one has. So raise your hand. Somebody tell me how many atoms carbonic acid has. Yes, sir. 5. How do you know that? Okay, so there's 2 hydrogens. Keep going. How many carbons? 1. And how many oxygens? 3. So how many atoms does carbonic acid have? 6. Good. How many does oxygen O2 have? 2. How many does hydrochloric acid have? It has an H and a Cl. 2. CO2, how many? 3. It has 1 carbon and 2 oxygens equals 3. How many does water have? 3. 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen equals 3. How many does helium have? 1. So which one has the most or the highest number of atoms? Carbonic acid. When you chose your answer, you wanted to make sure that you understood this. So if you got this wrong, you're going to say the correct answer is carbonic acid because it has how many atoms? 6. The rest of them have less than 6. Which of these has the highest number of different elements? Highest number of different elements, Mr. Stevenson. How do you know that? Excellent. So there are 3 different elements in carbonic acid. So if you got this one wrong, you're writing it has 3 different elements. It has hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, and write the words out. Good job. How many carbons are in carbonic acid? Most common mistake. Anybody want to guess what most people put as their mistake? What do you think they put as their mistake? Yes, most people pick 3 because they saw the little 3 here. But what is that little 3 attached to? Is it the little 3 attached to the C? The little 3 is attached to what? The O. So that means in carbonic acid there are 3 oxygens. But is there a letter attached to the C? A number, rather. No, there isn't a number attached to the C. So how many carbons does it have? It only has 1. Good job. Okay, which of these substances are elements? If it's an element, you'll find it on the periodic table. Can you find hydrochloric acid and carbonic acid on the periodic table all by itself? Is this an element, all these letters? No, so this is wrong right away. Number 2, can you find oxygen and helium all by themselves on the periodic table? Yes, so that is an element. Let me check to make sure the other 2, they're not tricking me. Carbon dioxide and water, do we find them on the periodic table? No, because those are combinations of elements. And water and oxygen. Well, we do find oxygen. Can we find water? No. So the only possible answer is oxygen and helium. And how do you justify your answer? Oxygen and helium are found on the periodic table of elements. And I say that to you because that is the question that you got incorrect, my friend. Yes. Which scientific model can be used to predict the properties of an element? This is the model that you may use to predict the properties of an element. How many people have ever heard of a closed loop system? I have not taught that to you yet, and I probably will not. It doesn't exist in this field that we're looking at. So that's wrong. Number 2, a periodic table. When we talk about elements, the only thing that we ever looked at, a chart, was the periodic table, so this is correct. The Punnett square is something that we'll use when we go to genetics. So that's not something that we're using yet. And water cycle chart is dumb. I hope nobody put that. We're not looking at a water cycle chart to get the properties of an element. We're looking at the periodic table to get the properties of an element. I'm going to finish this last question, number 9, and wrap it up and break this apart into 2 parts. So if you need to look at this again at home, you can. What do the symbols, big circle and little circle, represent in the model? Here are the symbols, big circle, little circle. What do they mean in this model? And they're telling you this model is water. So what do they stand for? Big circle. Can anybody tell me what goes in that big circle if I put a letter in there? And O, how do you know that? Right, so there's 2 H's and there's only 1 O. So there's only 1 big circle. So therefore my inference would be this has to be an O. And she said that there are 2 H's and there are 2 little circles, so these have to be H's. So what do these circles actually represent? Is this H genetic material, a chemical bond, a cell, or is that H an atom? What do you think it is? Go ahead. Yes, sir. I can't say your names, but I'm not sure. I actually said somebody's name. I'm not sure if your parents let me say your names, so that's why I'm not saying your names. They're atoms, exactly they are. Some people put other things. If you put chemical bonds, I wasn't as sad as if you put genetic material, cells. So chemical bonds would be these little sticks that combine the H and the O's. But they're not asking for the sticks, they're asking for the circles. Okay. So now we're going to stop this. Save. Okay.